Hey everyone, just want to encourage you to find us on your listening platform and give us a rating. Anywhere you listen to that has a rating system, go on over and give us a rating and maybe leave us a review. Let us know your thoughts. These ratings really do help. Thank you so much for listening. On to this week's episode. Happy Pride, guys.
Oh,
Happy
you're talking to
Pride.
us. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride. Yay, Pride.
I thought you were talking to the audience.
Right, both talking to you and the audience. It is Pride Month. It is one of our favorite times of the year, other than maybe Christmas. And we like to do usually Pride episodes. Because we're formatted to every other week, this is going to be our only Pride episode for the year. And we're doing something a little different. Instead of doing a 2024 new release, we're going to tackle something that came out last year that we really enjoyed, that you might have heard of, but you probably didn't know, was Remake. And that's going to be the 2023 British film, Us Strangers. We're going to be talking about the original Japanese version, The Discarnates. But because it's our Pride episode, we're also just going to be talking about the state of LGBTQIA representation in film and media. So this is a little special one-off in honor of Pride Month. So let's just get right into it. I'm Nicole.
I'm Rolando.
And I'm Eddie Z.
And this is Remakes, Reboots, and Revivals,
An original podcast
About unoriginality.
Fantastic. See, this time I didn't get thrown off. So how has your Pride Month been so far, guys?
I mean, it's only been, I guess it's been a little bit over a week.
We started hot, Nicole. Hot.
I saw. Tell me about it and tell the audience about it.
So we did a Pride race in Brooklyn Pride.
That's awesome.
The Brooklyn Pride run at Prospect Park. So you do like the loop, 3+ miles. We used to do this before the pandemic. We used to, almost every year. And then we kind of fell off on it after during the pandemic and afterwards. But we got the opportunity with some friends and to do it, and we had a great time. Rolando did very well.
Awesome.
I did. I actually jogged most of it this time.
Yeah,
I didn't just half-ass it and walk. I did it in 35 minutes.
That's really good for a 5K. That's really good time.
I was happy with myself, and
Yeah.
I look good in the bit. My arms look great. So if you've seen the video, even some of my buddies from the fraternity have been hitting me up, being like, "Yo, your arms look jacked," and I'm just like, "I know, jealous."
Tell me more. That's awesome. And jogging really is the key. When I could run before I had my foot problems, I would just jog it. Running is just too much, but jogging is so relaxing, really therapeutic in a way.
Oh,
So-
I hate it. I'm still not a fan.
You hate it?
I'm
I
not a fan.
like it. I like it.
Yeah, if I can.
But that's a
go
great
without
event.
running happily or jogging.
Yeah. But that is a really awesome event to be a part of, guys. So did you have to raise any money to do that, or is it just sign up and that's
No,
it?
it's just sign
No,
up.
I mean you pay for this registration.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you pay for the registration, and yeah, it's fun. It's a fun race, and then you enjoy the festivities after. There's the Brooklyn Pride festival.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's like a
so-
little street fair. It's mostly
Yeah,
just food
so-
and tchotchkes.
Vendors.
Oh my god! But I did have a
Anything.
great meal. It was like fried ceviche, which is kind of an oxymoron because ceviche is supposed to
Yeah.
be raw. But whatever it was so good. It was just so good. It was like they had a really nice thin and crispy frying over it. And
Batter sounds great.
Batter, thank you. That's what it is, a batter. And just nice crispy fries. And it was $15 and it filled me up.
It was good. They gave you a lot.
Yeah, they do give you a lot, yeah. So
That's awesome. I went to Asbury Park Pride myself. That was where I met my partner. We've been together for a year, so we celebrated that and we met there.
Congratulations.
wow, one
Thank
year
you very
Happy
together.
much.
anniversary.
Yeah, it's a huge milestone for us lesbians.
I know, because that's what's 10
Like 10
years?
years,
in,
10
It's
years,
exactly.
decade.
I'm surprised we're
Relationships.
not married. Yeah.
Right.
So
So are we. So are we.
I know everyone's just taken aback. So, but we'll see where the future leads us. But it's been a good Pride month so far, and I'm actually really excited for today to do a little bit of a one-off because this was a really, really interesting, unique film that came out, one that hit me in a very unique way and got me thinking and kind of inspired this whole episode idea.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said in the beginning, we're going to do All of Us Strangers that came out last year by Andrew Haigh, but it is actually a very kind of loose remake of a novel, a Japanese novel.
Mm-hmm. Although when I watched The Discarnates, which is the film that is based off of the novel, a lot of the beats were still pretty much accurate. They were just the major changes is just like we went from a straight relationship to a queer relationship, a gay relationship, you know.
Yes, and the ending, but
the ending a little bit, not in tone, sure, but not that far off from each other.
It's maybe in tone for sure, and also in. Well, we'll get into that because so the novel came out in 1987. It is
my birth year.
Yeah, it is written by Taichi Yamada, and the very next year, my birth year, the movie came out.
Mm-hmm.
It was directed by Nobuhiko Obayashi, who's actually a Japanese filmmaker that's known for a horror film called Houseu or House. I don't know if you guys know this movie.
I do know it. It's on my list of movies that I might put in our movie club.
Oh wow,
I've seen
this movie. It's been a while, but it's
like wacky,
it's
right?
It's a trip.
Yeah.
So picture the last 10 minutes of The Discarnates for a full hour and a half.
Okay, yeah, which I'm down for then.
Because literally the best part was the last 10 minutes. It's a wild. It's just so wild. But I also feel like Obayashi is a pacifist, very anti-war, and a very personal filmmaker, I feel like. So even though his movies can appear kind of crazy, there's some real emotional core to his films. And this is what in Japanese would be referred to as a Kwaidan film or a Kaidan film. I'm not Japanese, so I hope I'm pronouncing it right. But it's actually the type of ghost story. Ghost stories are huge in Japan. Mm-hmm. And they're kind of different because when it comes to, American representations of ghosts, I feel like the more classical, the Halloween type is like, the white sheet over and kind of like the whoo kind of figure. And
Nicole,
then in horror movies,
I don't think
that's the classical. That's what you get for Halloween like every year. That has not been
like that has not been like the way a ghost has been represented for like I think 3 decades. Like we got one.
When was the last time you bought Halloween decorations, sir?
Oh, how I thought you were talking about in media. I was just
no. I was getting to that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Way to jump down my throat.
Sure.
In movies and stuff, they're more so malevolent, evil, paranormal forces.
Not always, but sometimes.
More commonly.
Now, I mean, Ghost comes to mind. That wasn't a malevolent ghost. That was a love story. I never saw that movie, Ghost, but there was a movie, Ghost, wasn't there, with
Patrick Swayze?
No, Casey Affleck. He was literally but in that one, the costume design, he was like a ghost in like a literal sheet. No, I'm surprised. This is like one of those indie films that like I thought.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not sure
about. But is it called Ghost?
I think it's called A Ghost Story.
A ghost. Story.
Yeah. Okay.
A ghost story. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've heard of A Ghost Story. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, they kind of go all across the board, but like typically, I think that if you were to first think of ghosts with American representations, it's evil spirit. They're typically not portrayed as good, but in Japanese
now I'm trying
culture.
What's give me an example of an evil spirit ghost in movies?
Poltergeist?
No, but that's a poltergeist. That's not a ghost.
The Conjuring.
But it's the same
idea. The Conjuring are possessions.
Yeah, but still, they're paranormal evil entities.
That's not a ghost. I feel like a ghost. I think of like Ghost or Casper.
You think of Casper, the friendly ghost.
Right.
Which is so interesting because that's more closely related to the, classical sheet ghost.
It's just a white ghost. It's not a sheet.
It's just a white. It looks like it though.
Very sheety. It's very sheety.
Yes.
Sheety.
Sheety.
Sheety. Okay, I like that word. Yeah, now I'm trying to because I too was under the impression that most ghost stories in America tend to fall under horror, but I'm thinking about it, it's just do they now? Do they? Because I don't classify poltergeists as ghosts.
What do you classify?
But they are.
Are poltergeists ghosts? I thought poltergeists were not ghosts. They are.
No, they're angry spirits.
Oh, poltergeists are angry spirits. Okay, so then I take it back.
Well, if you're going to be very particular, like if a demon can't be a ghost, then you're going to have a hard time with this Japanese definition that I'm going to give you. Because typically, too, they're very vengeful, kind of from a dark place spirits, this kaidan.
Like the Grudge.
Yes, and Ring. Like the Ring.
Oh, and the Ring. Yeah, Ringu.
So it's a Japanese word consisting of two kanji, meaning strange, mysterious, rare, or bewitching apparition, and talk or recited narrative, right? So those two together put it, and it's pretty much, it's like dates back to the Edo period, and it's all about like a very specific type of vengeful spirit.
Okay.
And the thing about these vengeful spirits too is that they're usually a kind of a spirit that's out for revenge, that was wronged in their past life. And it's usually someone who was of a lower class standing or a lower social standing, more typically women or elderly. So they're out for a very specific moment of revenge. And this is a movie that is very typically a Japanese ghost story when it comes to the end of it, at least. But throughout it, it's this almost, it's very similar to what All of Us Strangers becomes, which is, a man kind of reconnecting with his past.
Yes,
in ways that is very fantastical ways.
Right. And maybe they both hit a little different in terms of what the message of the storyteller is.
Yes. One is a little bit more straightforward, or at least in terms of its classical ghost storytelling. And one is a little less like trying to, sew it all up at the end and almost leave more questions than there are answers.
Oh, I was going to say more so like one is, so even though it's a ghost story, one is also about the pitfalls of just falling into nostalgia.
I mean, that as well.
I mean, technically, I guess both of them are, but one of them is more like a cautionary tale because one, like, we are seeing a guy like kind of wither away.
Yeah, well, one has like a clear 8-story structure to it. The other one, not so much, in my opinion. Or at least it's not as concerned.
Yeah,
we're talking in like loose ends.
We're talking in code, so let's just get into it, I guess.
Yeah, well, so The Discarnates from 1988. It's pretty much about a writer. He's recently divorced. He has a son that doesn't talk to him. He's not that happy. He lives alone in a way off Tokyo apartment, practically alone. It's only him, his landlord, and then this other woman who in the beginning of the film reaches out to him with a bottle of alcohol and, is pretty much desperate for his attention, and he turns her away. And while in the midst of, I think,
really
location scouting, he wasn't that nice about it. He was kind of a dick. While in the midst of location scouting, he kind of gets lost, and he gets off at a train stop that was his childhood home. And he decides to venture off. And when he does, and he's like looking around the area, he notices someone that reminds him an awful lot about his father. He follows this man, follows him back to his childhood home, where he finds out that his mother and his father, who died in a bicycling accident when he was about 12, I believe, they are there just like they looked right before they died. And he can't believe it. And it takes him a while. It takes him a couple of visits to kind of let it all soak in, which I thought was also like somewhat comical, but also incredibly realistic, where you're just like constantly asking yourself, can this be, can this be, can this be, even though you keep going
back. Yeah.
And he spends more and more time with them. And we kind of don't realize what happens in the beginning of the film. Like it takes a while for him to tell us what happened to them. And the relationship unfolds, but at the same time, he starts opening up to this other woman who lives in this practically empty apartment complex. And they form a relationship, one that's really based on sex. And she has a wound that she's hiding from him, that she doesn't want him to see, so she's got some body issues.
She's kinky. She's just like, you can hit it from the back, but only the back.
Only doggy style.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, and the more he is almost like running on adrenaline from having his parents back, the more like sexually active he feels, and like he's just kind of thriving.
Yeah, he becomes happier.
Yes, it gives him all this life, but also at the same time, this girl, Kay, I believe is her name. She's like, have you looked in the mirror recently? Because you don't look the same. You almost look as if your life force is being sucked out of you. And he's like, what? I feel great. What are you talking about? And then occasionally he'll catch a glimpse of himself in the mirror, and he looks like an old, decrepit man.
Yeah.
And now he's like, well, shit, my parents, who I love and I keep visiting and I don't want to stop visiting, they might be sapping my life force.
Right.
So towards the end of the film, he decides that, I'm pretty much summing up this whole film. He decides he has to cut them off. Yeah. He tells them, I'm dying. I feel like I'm dying and I'm losing myself. I don't want to say goodbye, but I have to. Mm-hmm. They go out for one last meal and they tell him that they have to leave. An emotional little moment too. They start to slowly fade and he's begging them not to go. And they say they have to and they leave. He goes back home. He looks for comfort in this new girlfriend. And then at the same time, his buddy, who also
who decided
trying to bang his wife,
his ex-wife. He asked for permission at the beginning of the movie. He's like, "Hey, we can't really hang out anymore because I want to date your ex-wife and ask for her hand in marriage."
Madly in love with her.
What, bro?
Yeah,
code broken.
It's kind of fucked up,
truly.
But his desire was too strong. So anyway, he comes to visit Hidemi, and he's like, "Yeah, I see a light on the third floor is on." And the landlord's like, "Oh, I wonder where your guy could be because he's the only person here." And he's like, "What about that other girl?" And he's like, "That other girl killed herself. She slashed herself over the chest like 10 times."
Which, how does one do that?
I know. I mean, again, it's interesting too because they chose a very specific area in a very specific way, but it doesn't make it like you have more questions about it.
Yeah, for sure. No. Like there's a point where when we see the scars for the first time, like it's all booze, but like the way the scars are, they cover up her nipples, which is like the immodest part. I thought it was hilarious costume choices. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you still get the titty out, but it's covered up ever so slightly by scars. Like,
pretty much, yeah. It's all about that reveal at the end because then his friend's like, "There's a light on in the third floor," and he runs up and he sees Hidemi, practically like a 99-year-old looking man, and a ghost holding him. And we find out that it wasn't his parents, probably most likely, who are taking his life force, but this woman who is actually a vengeful ghost spirit, and she's out for revenge because of the way he treated her the night she killed herself.
Oh, that's so is that explicit? I had to watch that ending a couple of times because I was a little confused by it. It was very chaotic.
It was
incredibly chaotic to the point where it's just like, okay, I had to I watched it.
I mean, the movie completely shifts gears.
Oh yeah, no, tonality, like it just goes into like straight up like horror. Like the makeup on him, the makeup on her floating around, even the effects that they were doing, like, kind of that way it was like kind of shot was like kind of frantic.
Yes, very fantastical, very frantic. Just now it's going into like very creative and very outlandish film sets and makeup and everything. And she's just like, she turns into this huge ghost and she tells him, like I pretty sure she told him, like, "I did this because of the way you treated me. I just reached out for like some kindness and some understanding and you rejected me." And
yes,
she was very, very upset about it. And she's there to pretty much make him pay. But then she's like, "All I wanted was for you to love me." And he's like, "But I do love you." He's like, "I've grown to love you." And he kind of apologizes. And then she's like, "Okay, fine. I guess I'll give you your life back." And then she gives him his life back and she disappears.
Which is why, so that's why I didn't think necessarily that she was like a vengeful spirit necessarily. Angry, yes, but not necessarily vengeful. Does that make sense? Like, I don't know if necessarily she was stealing his life force to kill him, or it was more just was she still longing for that? I don't know. I thought she was just longing for that connection that she was so desperate to seek, that she so desperately was seeking still in the
probably a bit of both, honestly. Because she pretty much forgives him and gives him his life back, it does seem like she's able to be assuaded by him. She's able to be appeased by him, but she definitely needed kind of like to be like, say fuck you.
Yeah.
Like some point.
Because like, now, was it him that stabs her at the very end as a ghost? Because like she gets covered in blood.
I think she kind of sacrifices herself to give him back his life.
Oh, is that what happened? Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Like, I was incredibly confused by this ending.
Yeah, because his friend is like holding him back.
All of a sudden, there's like blood gushing everywhere, and we see the knife, but the knife is on the floor, and I'm just like, what is happening?
Yeah, she shows her scar. You know, she shows what he did to, like, what she did to herself.
Right.
And then I think she kind of voluntarily then, you know, just takes the blood that she sucked out of him and gave it back to him.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
I know. It doesn't really make any sense. But it's also great because, like, his friend knows exactly what's happening to him.
Of course. Yeah, no, totally. As all friends do, right?
It's so Eastern, right? Like, a Western culture film could never do that.
Yeah.
But an Eastern culture film can very easily do that and be like, oh my God, it's a vengeful spirit. It's very different.
Yeah.
And then at the end, he visits his old home, finds out that it actually wasn't even standing there. It's been demolished. And so he decides to let his parents rest. He lights some candles, he lights some incense, the chopsticks that they last used, and he tries to say goodbye.
Yeah.
And his friend actually then comes up with a very logical explanation for everything that happened, where he's like, yeah, you were just dealing with a lot. You know, the girl killed herself. You lost your parents when you were 12. You just had an episode.
Which also sounds very Japanese way of being like, it's just like, we're going to pretend this didn't happen. So like, this is the explanation. You know, how that culture seems very prim and proper in terms of like, we will not speak of this again. Yeah. Maybe apologies if I'm painting with broad strokes here, because I'm going with what I know from media.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, too, it's just like, let's move past this. Let's move on, which is a very human thing to do. And he does. And he kind of just has a moment, but he realizes that, you know, it wasn't that it was actually like he interacted with ghosts.
Yeah.
And he just hopes that they're at peace now because he himself is at peace. You know, when he was in the hospital, his son got to visit him. Like, he's finally okay with the way things are in his life. So he kind of had to learn the hard way, but he's learning some sort of inner peace.
Right.
And so that's the basis of what this story is. And I guess Andrew Haigh, from what I've read, he read the novel, actually.
Okay.
And he was quite inspired to make it his own. And so Andrew Haigh is really famous, I think, at least for the queer community filmmaker. He made a film in 2011 called Weekend, which, have you guys seen?
Yes.
He also made a television show, Looking, on HBO.
Which we have seen also.
And that got canceled pretty early on in its run.
After season 2 got canceled, but they gave it a TV movie that wraps up the series. So,
how was that? I never saw that.
Oh, I like the movie.
That was good. Yeah. It did what it's supposed to do. It wrapped up the characters, giving them somewhat happy endings or better circumstances at the very least.
The most shameful thing about the show, to be quite honest, was that the fact that all the main characters were insufferable a little bit. But here's the thing: all the tertiary characters, right? All the friends of, all the boyfriends, all the lovers of these main characters, they were way more fascinating, and they should have been the focus of the show. In my opinion.
It definitely would have been interesting,
right? Richie
to flip that script.
Yeah, Richie, the hot Hispanic barber, was way more interesting than Patrick, the white guy who is basically, you know, cheats on his boyfriend, who is like this, again, hot, smoldering Latino, and it cheats on him with like an attractive British man, but it's still, you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
I thought he was an interesting character. I just didn't think he was a very likable one.
Who?
But
the main character?
Yeah, the Jonathan Groff character.
Yeah. Really? I thought he was interesting?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think really flawed people are interesting because, you know, they're flawed. If they didn't have any flaws, they wouldn't be interesting.
He was flawed. I didn't find him interesting. Augustine, I thought, was the most interesting out of the 3 characters, followed by then...
Was that the Cuban man?
That was the Cuban guy, yeah. But he was just a hot mess, and that's what was interesting about him.
Yeah, that was very interesting about him.
And then the guy who wanted to make the peri peri chicken, right? That was his storyline. He had interesting storylines also, but like he himself necessarily wasn't. He was just a hot older guy who just fucked around with like lots of young people and then fell in love with an older guy, and it's just like, oh my god, woe is me. But the older guy doesn't want to like marry me because of his hang-ups. We're not talking about Looking. I'm sorry. It was just, you brought it up and it started spewing out of me. I like the show though. I actually have seen it twice.
Yeah, I saw it when it came out for a little bit, but I didn't continue with it. But I thought it was good. But I also think that Andrew Haigh can make characters that you get really strong emotional responses to, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah, I would agree. He understands. I think
he's good at that.
I mean, with Weekend and Looking, there is something he does understand something about the queer experience that, like, for the most part, traditional storytellers in like Hollywood don't like tell. Yeah. Right? Like he's able to tell like kind of these stories that are so inherently queer. And sometimes we don't get that oftentimes in Hollywood. We'll get that sometimes on the perimeters, right? We'll get that in some indie films and stuff, and sometimes they're bad, but he happens to be talented. So like his stuff tends to be good, you know. I mean, that's really, yeah, that's why I liked Looking, right? Even though it wasn't necessarily like the greatest show ever, he was still able to tell like interesting queer stories that I did like and stuff.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, so his follow-up film was 45 Years.
Which I've never seen.
I haven't seen either, but that's not necessarily, I'm not sure if it would be classified as a queer film.
I think it's just a love story.
Yeah.
I think it's like just a romance.
So a hetero love story.
I think so. I can't be 100% sure.
I'm not sure either. So as two people haven't seen it, but it was different for him. I heard it was emotional, and he's pretty good at that. He also made a movie that I never even heard of called Lean on Pete.
That is a queer one.
That's a queer one? Okay. Yeah, I didn't hear much about it. Did a couple of television episodes and stuff, and then he made a new film last year, All of Us Strangers, which stars Andrew Scott and Paul Mescal, two of the most in-demand actors, I think, at the moment.
What is it about Paul Mescal that makes him so in demand?
I don't know. He's got like that thing that... Who's the guy from The Bear?
Oh, yeah. He's the one from Shameless. I don't know his name, but I
Jeremy something.
Yeah, you're right.
But they both have this quality that's very in right now.
What is it? Is it kind of like ugly but hot body?
Yeah, kind of like.
No offense to them. I mean, they look. Ugly is a strong word, right? They're not ugly, but they're not conventionally attractive.
They're not traditionally.
There you go.
Like the type of man that has.
But they do have phenomenal bodies. Like, I'll say that. Like,
I think they're very attractive, just in a different way. They're not Ryan Gosling attractive. They're not Brad Pitt attractive. You know,
sure. You mentioned two guys who I don't find attractive, for sure.
Do you find Paul Mescal or Jeremy Allen White? Is that his name?
I do not find Jeremy Allen White attractive. I find him interesting. Like, I loved him in The Bear, right? But I would not call him attractive by any stretch of the imagination for me. But same thing, like you said, but you also called Brad Pitt out and what was it, Ryan Gosling?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
two
find
guys
him
you're not. Yeah, they're like, I don't know, women love them.
Women do.
Yeah, I don't get it either. But I get Andrew Scott.
I do. That one I understand a little bit more. There's something about he has like sad puppy dog eyes, I think, is what it is.
Yeah, it's strictly his personality, but he's also he's a little effeminate, so
that's also true.
I like him. So this movie came out. You might have heard of it, but you probably didn't because it didn't really get a nationwide theatrical release, and I'm pretty sure it didn't get nominated for any Academy Awards.
Right, because the same distributor that pushed it was also they campaigned harder for Poor Things.
Yes.
Right. So because they campaigned for Poor Things, they left All of Us Strangers kind of out in the dust. And in their defense, it paid off because, you know, Poor Things kind of swept at the Oscars.
Yeah, Poor Things did really well and it had a lot of viewership. I feel like right after the Oscars, everybody watched it. And that movie's queer to an extent.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
Oh. Yeah. But this film it's very queer. It
is so queer.
Made by queer people, starring at least one queer person that I know.
Yeah, I don't think Paul Mescal.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't
Paul
think
Mescal is not. I think he is cis hetero.
Yeah.
Boring.
And it just kind of was quietly released on Hulu back in February. We watched it as part of our own kind of outside movie club. Mm-hmm. And it's a shame because it's actually a very interesting and emotional film that I wish more people were aware of.
Yeah.
So what is All of Us Strangers? Take the plot that I just told you about the Discarnates, except
make it gay.
Pretty much make it gay.
Yeah. That's really
so
even the ghost element at the end.
Yes. So if you are, oh my gosh, spoilers. If you want to watch this film and you want to have a pretty much clean experience watching it without knowing anything, then turn this episode off.
Yeah.
Maybe you shouldn't have listened in the first place.
And then come back. No, but it's still so good. This film is just, this is the one film I've been like raving about to people. It's just like, oh, you haven't seen, you got to check it out. This movie is so good. Because it's so, in terms of like storytelling and like kind of filmmaking, it's very simple, but damn, does it pack a wallop.
Yeah, it's incredibly personal, which I always enjoy that element to it when a film like really goes there. So how do we even approach this movie? I mean, I told you the plot of The Discarnates. Make it gay. Bam, you got all of Us Strangers. It's more so about a young queer boy who grew up in the 80s. So it's kind of got like his two parents played by Claire Foy and Jamie Bell. You know, and it's English, right? So we're outside of Japan. We're now in an English environment. And we're having a lot of conversations about, you know, these two parents who don't know anything about who their son grew up to be. And he grew up to be, you know, a queer, lonely writer. Yeah. And him kind of informing them about his life.
Yeah. Lonely is the key word, right? Because he has all these hangups that came from growing up in the 80s as a young gay man in the 80s, right? You're talking peak AIDS epidemic, right? And that kind of helps with his identity of like who he is and like how he behaves in the world, which then that gets juxtaposed when he starts dating the younger Henry. Is his name Henry? Harry, the younger Harry, who is not millennial. I think he's Gen Z. Is he Gen Z or is he millennial? He's young. He's supposed to be in his 20s.
Well, the actor is 28.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Well, we were a little confused. I remembered when we were watching the movie because like Andrew Scott looks a lot younger than he actually is. So when he was saying like how he was playing like an older guy, I was confused. I was just like, wait, like in his 30s now we're considered that older? He's like, oh no, I think he's playing someone in his like 40s. Like he's very much someone in his 40s and dating someone right now who's in his, I think, mid to late 20s. Cradle robber.
but none of that really kind of dictates the narrative of the story.
No,
you don't feel like this is a generational relationship itself,
right?
But you do get the sense of his of the era that he grew up with when you encounter him and his family, his parents.
Yes. Oh, that's also true.
I think that's more evident in his relationship with them, and also the times that his parents grew up in, and how they are formed as adults because of that, and their ideas and their perspectives of the time period they grew up in.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe because like a lot of the conversations that Harry has with I forgot the main characters. Adam. That Adam and Harry have together tend to be so focused on like how they grew up, right? And for example, there was a conversation about like, oh, you say gay. It's so funny. We say queer and stuff, and that used to be an offensive term and then it's like, oh, that's so funny. That used to be like an offensive term for me, and now it's just like something that you guys have like kind of co-opted. They're having these conversations, these generational conversations. Well, and you're right. I don't think that's not necessarily how they're defining the relationship.
At the same time, too, not all that was said, but all that was implied.
But he literally said that.
No, because I just recently saw the scene.
So
it wasn't like he was saying like, "Oh, you guys took that."
Oh no, yeah.
But it was more like, "Oh, I don't use queer. I prefer gay." And then the other one, he said queer. It seems nicer. It has less cocksuckiness.
Yeah, that's what he said to it. Yeah, it's just a matter of how they speak to each other, right? And I'm not saying that's what the relationship was about. This relationship just happens to very much be about two lonely people who find company in each other. Right?
Yes. Because they're the only two people living in this like 20-foot tall London
20-story?
Yeah.
20-story building in the middle of like an offshoot of London. It's very isolated.
Yeah. Would you guys want to live in a building like that that's like only maybe have one other tenant?
Probably not.
I don't know. I'm like mixed. Like maybe that sounds like it's just like, oh, that sounds pretty quiet. But I don't know if I want to be like that high and only be the only person. on my
It would
own.
feel a little weird, and it would feel a little isolating, just knowing you're completely alone for a space that's meant to occupy people.
So many people, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, they begin a relationship, and he kind of is trying to write. He's a screenwriter, just like the older version.
Mm-hmm.
And he's inspired by having these cathartic visits to his family and like kind of telling them who he was and kind of bringing up old kind of traumas and healing from them.
Mm-hmm.
In particular, he has like this conversation about his dad and about how he got bullied. And when he came home from school, he felt like he couldn't talk about it. And they like address that, and his father apologizes. You know, he opens up to his mother about being queer, and she kind of slowly comes to accept it.
Yeah, the first time she hears about, finds out that he's gay, you know, she has, I think, a response that like I think is not uncommon when it comes to like coming out for the first time with your parents, right? Which is just like their fears now of like, what does that mean for you, right? Because like they're suddenly losing all of. There's a death that comes when like your kid comes out to you, right? And it's a death of what you expected that future of your kid to be, right? And like kind of her coming to terms with it and stuff. And it's, you know, she eventually does come around, right? She does. It just took some time.
Yeah. And it's a very different thing because in the original, there's not that element, you know, he's just kind of like he's afraid to tell them of his failures as a father, as a husband, you know, like that he's not as happy as he pretends to be and as they want him to be. You know, he kind of feels like a failure in those departments. But in All of Us Strangers, it's more like, you know, I don't feel like a failure, but I don't want you to think of me as one. And it is this inner, like having to heal your own kind of, I'm okay with who I am, but I don't know if others are okay with it.
Yeah.
So it's different. And yeah, and he begins this relationship with Harry. There's like this crazy scene where they go to a club, and then the movie just becomes completely fantastical in a very unique way after that, because it almost seems as if Andrew Haigh is encouraging you to question your reality of the film at that point. And it could be all just kind of, you know, a ecstasy or drug ridden hallucination. It could be a nightmare, or it could actually just be, it could be anything at this point.
Right.
Adam tries to introduce Harry to his parents, but they're not there. So he starts questioning, you know, whether or not this is kind of real or not.
Harry saw them.
Like through the window, see the mother.
He saw her through the window and kind of has a freak out, and he leaves, right? Because like he saw how she was dressed, and it just did not look contemporary, and that freaks her out. Which I actually was wondering post watching this film, right? Is that related at all to the ending, right?
Probably.
Twist ending that we get later.
It probably would be, actually, yeah. Oh, for some reason I didn't remember that.
Yeah. They lock eyes. Like we see them lock eyes. Damn. And then Harry runs off like scared.
There you go.
Yeah.
So then that's pretty much to tell you what happens. But, you know, Andrew Scott, his life force is not draining. He doesn't look in the mirror and see himself. But what he does feel is, in place of that, is this kind of like hallucinatory approach to the storytelling. Is he just kind of going down, you know, this drug-ridden like trip, or is this reality? And you don't know. So Adam has to say goodbye. He takes his parents out to a dinner. They pretty much tell him that they can't say anymore. Their time is up. You know, he's thankful for all the cathartic releasing and healing that he had. He goes back home, tries to see Harry, and he comes to the realization that Harry's been dead since that first night he approached him, and that he's a ghost. And now Harry is recognizing, he did not know this whole time that he was, and he is now recognizing that he is deceased. And the movie ends in a completely different way from the original, which Adam just kind of holds him while he accepts his fate. And Adam kind of now accepts his own kind of like living amongst ghosts. Is Adam even himself a ghost? Who fucking knows at this point?
Right. That's one of the theories that some people have postulated.
That is one of the theories, yeah. Because again, unlike the original film, which is kind of giving you explanations for everything, this one doesn't. This one wants, it's very mysterious. But it also is letting you kind of come to your own conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
And and then they it's a beautiful it's a beautiful visual effect where they slowly fade away and while they turn into a star, and they're just one of millions of stars in the sky.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that was.
What do you think about that end?
Like the very ending?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, prior to the reveal when he reveals that he is dead is probably like it's like the second gut punch, right? Because I feel like the first gut punch for sure comes when he's saying goodbye to his parents. Because I think also unlike this, no, actually no, and the other one, Discarnates too, like it's the parents that kind of make that decision, like we have to leave you to like kind of save you, like this is not healthy. This relationship that you're forming with us, we have to say goodbye, and they get that goodbye, and they kind of leave, right? So that's the first gut punch, and then like it's just like, okay, great, but now he can go and be happy with like his boyfriend, right? And they can start a happy life together, and then all of a sudden we discover he's dead. He died the night he came drunk at his door just looking for some company. That's when he killed himself, and it was heartbreaking, right? And I think this is where Paul Mescal kind of his moment came to shine, because like he gave such a very subdued but like very very like sad performance here, when like he's just asking, is like, why hasn't anyone found me? Like, why didn't my parents, like, why has no one found me? Why are we figuring out right now that I just died? Because I think him as a ghost, similar to like the Sixth Sense, like it just doesn't, like they themselves are processing this too. Like he was in denial up until this moment when like another person has seen his corpse.
Yeah.
So that is, it was sad. It was like completely sad. It was probably like, I think there's a moment where I teared up in the film. I thought it was going to be the parents saying goodbye. Like I felt the tears welling up, and I'm like, no, I'm strong enough. I could get through this. But it's like that moment at the end. It's just like, oh, now he has no one and stuff. I actually wasn't a big fan though of like the very, very last shot of like them kind of forming stars and like kind of going off into the sleep. I think that got a little too surrealist for me, but that's just for me.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the whole film is wildly fantastical.
Sure.
But it's also in a weird way subtle.
Yeah, it is.
It's very subtle. Yeah. So I guess that one was more of a slapping you across the face.
Yeah, a little, just a little bit too much. Yeah. Because, they're also just like, they're hugging together and they're just together in the bed. I don't think by any means, like, is the implication here that Adam is dead. I think he's just comforting Harry to maybe pass on to the actor.
No, that's interesting, because I actually took it as Adam deciding he will die.
Oh, you think so?
Well, I mean, everyone he loves is dead.
That doesn't, but that's because I think so. If that's the case, then that kind of ruins the closing with his parents, because like that was the moment that he was kind of making peace with, like, I need to let go of my past to kind of be happy with myself.
Yeah.
Right. And what's it called? Like,
not Paul. Harry's death also ruins that. And I don't know. The two of them on the bed becoming a star just feels like closure to me.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't know. Eddie, how did you interpret it? Do you think Adam is accepting death? Or were they both dead, right? Because I remember we did hear the fire alarms at the beginning of the film. So some people have postulated that maybe everyone is dead. And that should be the name of the movie. All of Us Strangers Are Dead.
Could be that, yeah.
I prefer the Dick sense.
I don't think he was dead when he said goodbye to his parents, though, because then why would they need to say goodbye to him? And I'm sorry, Eddie, I'll let you go now.
No, I get the same. I really feel that Adam is alive, and Adam is whatever particular gift or ability or his openness is able to experience these ghosts, let's just say, lack of a better word, echoes from the past, or so that he can heal. So for him to die at the end, I feel would be like, yeah, I feel like it wouldn't make any sense. I feel like because he would be in the space of forgiveness and love and growth, and then to give that all up, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Perhaps, yeah, maybe he's just able now to let go, accept death and embrace it, quite literally. Maybe, yeah. It's interesting because these, in a weird way, remind me of the Mike Flanagan Netflix series, where it uses ghosts, like The Haunting of Hill House and The Haunting of Bly Manor, as just a beautiful metaphor for healing and for, discussing past traumas. He does it in a way more horror way. And I guess I could use that as an example to your earlier question, Mike Flanagan.
Oh, Mike Flanagan.
But
okay, yeah.
But Andrew Haigh is using it here for a very dramatic and emotional way. And very cathartic. Anyone who's lost their parents young or has experienced loss at a very young age, please be warned that this film will be very emotional for you. But it's a beautiful film that I do think is kind of for everyone, and yet it's also very queer. And I kind of want to ask you guys, how do you feel about this being like a queer film? Do you think this is an important queer film?
I definitely think so. I was very much moved by this movie and recognized a lot of the tones spoke to me without having to identify them per se, like depression or loneliness or childhood trauma. These things were done in a way where I felt like I was processing my stuff too, as Adam was, going to the past and being able to go to his childhood home and kind of clean up that space and relationships too. So I felt that all these things are kind of important, like your coming out story and how that affects your parents, and even my case, my father died before I was able to come out to him. So knowing that that's something too, like be able to relate, and what it is to love and not being able to hold on to it.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think it's important. I don't know if maybe important isn't the right word, but yes, I do think this is like one of the films that like maybe gay people should put like in their repertoire, right? Because we don't get that many. We don't have like our repertoire of like movies that like should be must watches are not that big. For example, I actually don't think Call Me by Your Name should fall under that list of like of gay movies, because it's not a gay movie. They're both, well, at least one of them is definitely bisexual, and the other one is just about he's kind of underage, having whatever. Neither here nor there. The point is, but Luca, I do think should be on that like queer watch list for everybody. Just saying, Disney's Luca. Nicole's not like even flinching.
Well, no, I just don't want you to offend bisexuals by saying that, because they're part of the community.
Oh no, that's not the only reason why. I think it's more so because it's not. Maybe because it's not like the love story there.
Then it's still
like a one side.
It's queer. It's queer.
But like but that's not why I don't think it should. I think it's because maybe the love dynamic of that one is a lot more one sided, right?
But that's so queer.
Okay, that's fair.
I mean, I think a lot of people have experienced one-sided love affairs, especially when they're young.
You're right.
That's a very common queer experience.
Then you know what? I take it back. Fine. Throw in Call Me by Your Name. I don't know though. It is a good film though. I did enjoy it. It's sexy, just as this one is sexy, right? And I think that's why. Going back to this film, like, is this like an important film? Yeah, I think this is like one of the movies that we should like put in like our gay like must watches, because it does touch on so much of like that, like our queerness when we're growing up and identity of like who we are in relation to our parents.
Yeah.
Right. And like having these this character having these conversations with his deceased parents. I don't know. There was something so, I don't know, like it's conversations that I myself also never had with my father, because I also came out after he passed away too. Right.
Yeah.
So
same as well.
Yeah. So that's one thing all three of us have in common right here. Maybe that's why all three of us were like kind of so moved by this film. We all have at least one parent that we were not able to come out to before they passed away. I think in terms of the other element, I think the other thing about the film that I do enjoy is like kind of how there is a lot of like there's like some like a lot of queer imagery that also just comes to mind in this film, right? I think one that comes to mind is like for the first time when Adam sees his father for the first time. It's at that park and his father's off in that distance, and it seemed very much like a cruising kind of scene. And I was just like, oh, okay, what's happening? Because we know that he's been suffering with loneliness, so maybe I just thought this is how he gets his kicks, right? Going out to like public parks and like cruising. But it turns out this is his father, which made me feel like, oh, ew, gross. Although, like,
no, but I actually thought about bringing that up.
Poor fantasy.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think this All of Us Strangers is a very important queer film because, one, we're not secondary characters. Mm-hmm. This is a queer protagonist and it's centered around his story. Mm-hmm. Two, it's not about his coming out. And it's not about him finding love for the first time. It's actually about loneliness, and it's about isolation, and it's about healing, and themes that I think, three things that are really important for queer people to connect to and see in representation, albeit in a very unique way. And also it has a really great balance of not really being about, like, it's not a film about queerness, mm-hmm. but it also kind of is.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it's a beautiful kind of blend of that, which is also why I think it's a perfect gateway film. Like, this film can really be for anybody.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit more
for us,
for queers. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I mean, everybody knows, like, oh, this, people love to say this film wasn't made for me. This film wasn't made for me. And so many films are made for straight people. Mm-hmm. I mean, at the end of the day, too, so many films are made for straight men, not even women. The straight women movies are maybe the rom-coms and whatnot. So it's always nice to see like a film that I actually believe is kind of made for everybody, mm-hmm. but is also very much ours. So.
Yeah. I would agree. We didn't talk about The Discarnates, but one of the things I actually do like how both films handle how they film every time the main character talks to the family. They always both filmmakers decided to like kind of handle the lighting and everything like different. Even like the kind of lens that you use on the parents, it's a lot softer, right? They almost have like this like kind of like ethereal glow to them, especially at the end. Mm-hmm. In The Discarnates, it's how we use the what's it called, the temperature, the color temperature, right? Because like when we're in the real world, everything is like kind of blue, it's colder. But when we're with the family, everything is warmer, it's like brighter and stuff, and it's just lit differently. And both films kind of carry that tradition, and I kind of appreciated it. I didn't know how prevalent it's going to be when watching Discarnates and stuff, and
no, I would agree with that. And the use of imagery when like Andrew Scott is alone looking out the window of his apartment is actually fucking gorgeous. The amount of times he looks at sunsets or just on a train looking out, it's actually really beautiful photography. Mm-hmm. Andrew Haig is really, really good at that. Yes. So let us now segue into queer films, the state of queer films. Okay. Like I said too, here's a film where we're not secondary characters because most of the time we are. If we were to kind of review a lot of the pieces that we've reviewed where there was queer representation, how many of them were protagonists or the main characters?
Oh, okay. The only one that comes to mind, I think, last year was Fire Island, which wasn't even from last year.
That was our special Pride episode.
That was a special Pride episode, which wasn't even, it came out when?
The year before. So 2 years ago.
2022.
Yeah.
Just as this movie came out last year.
Yeah, seriously. There's The Color Purple, perhaps.
Oh, that's right. The Color Purple, the new one, had for sure a little bit of a lesbian element.
Explicit, with its. The only reason why I want to say Mean Girls is just because of Renee Rapp, but she's not queer.
I think Renee Rapp herself.
Renee Rapp is, in real life she is, but the Regina George character she played is not.
No, although they should have made
characters are queer,
right? They should have made Katie at least bi-curious. That was a missed opportunity because I really thought that's where they were going to go with it because of the way they, especially the song. It's like, my name is Regina. How she's looking at her, it seems so lesbian.
Yeah. Like, I mean, but that's a hardcore read into it. Unfortunately,
I'm just saying, should have.
They should have.
Who needs Aaron if you have Regina?
Ripley is somewhat about it, but it would be more on the asexual side of things.
I feel like Ripley's way more asexual than which is part of the spectrum.
Yes, which is part of the spectrum, and which is one that does barely get any screen time.
But he is a murderer,
people do not understand asexuals. Yeah. Which is also kind of shady.
And con artists. So.
Yeah.
But you know
X-Men
what?
97 is written in. Mm-hmm.
Which one?
X-Men 97, I was going to say. Maybe,
oh, yeah. No, that one's pretty queer.
Mm-hmm.
That one
Even though
it's about superheroes and stuff, but like it's so queer coded. Like, yeah, no, that one for sure counts and stuff. But it's not, but you're right, in the sense of like, but it's not a queer story, right? These are other, they're an other story, which is just something that we queer people can relate to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This past weekend, when it came to new movie releases in theaters, Bad Boys for Life, which, sorry, we're not covering, that came out.
Bummer.
I don't know. Yeah, I know. Such a bummer. It actually performed really well at the box office.
I heard it's actually not bad.
Yeah, I'm sure it's actually, a good time at the theaters.
I'm sure it's Michael Bay. They're saying that some of the camera sequences for like the film itself is like actually like did not need to be this good. I'm glad that they
Michael Bay didn't make it though.
Is that a Michael Bay movie?
No, he didn't.
Who directed?
These two men whose names I can't remember, but they directed the third Bad Boys as well. But Michael Bay produced it. He didn't direct it.
Okay, got it.
But anyway, smash hit, but classic franchise action movie, buddy cop movie.
Mm-hmm.
Lesser known, though, on HBO Max, we got released a film called Am I Okay?, which is a film that was co-directed by Tig Notaro. Do you know Tig Notaro?
I know who Tig Notaro is. She's the lesbian comedian.
Exactly. A pretty well-known lesbian comedian. She made this film 2 years ago, got acquired by Warner Discovery 2 years ago, and it took them 2 years to quietly release it on HBO Max. And it's about...
Quietly?
Yes. A late 20-year-old who's kind of realizing she's queer.
Oh, okay.
Really cute film, really unique story.
With Dakota Johnson.
With Dakota Johnson.
Oh, I mean... I wonder if they did it quietly because of Spider-Woman or whatever it is.
Madam Web.
Madam Web.
Maybe. Maybe. But it's unfortunate because it's a really unique film. I watched it with my partner. She found a lot of it relatable. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's flawed and it's very templatey. It kind of scratches off all of the like predictable boxes and whatnot. And it's also a love story between like two friends. They don't fall in love with each other. They're like platonic love story.
Mm-hmm.
But it's unique and it's very, very queer. And it sucks that not a lot of people are aware of it. So it's a shame because we've made progress, but we've made progress as including us as, background characters or buddies to the main character and protagonists. And that's great. But it could be better is all.
Yes.
Progress is always slow.
Yeah. No. I agree with you. I mean, I think part of that, though, happens to be with, I hate to say it, but it's like how no one's going to the movies. We know this. But, like, what are people not going to the movies at all for? And I think, LGBT-related films don't perform that well in the box office. Look at Bros. When that movie came out, I think 2 years ago? Last year?
Yeah,
I don't remember.
About 2 years ago, yeah.
That one... was like the first major studio release for like an actual like gay film, right? And it was going to be like really gay and in your face, and it just did not perform well in the box office. I saw it in the theaters. I happen to just think that the reason it didn't work well was because of the casting. That's just my opinion. No one wanted to see Billy Eichner as a romantic lead, but that's who they took their chance with. Same thing with this film. This film did not get a wide release. All of Us Strangers.
Yeah.
So the question is like, if these aren't getting wide releases, are they performing well in streaming? Well, you just said Am I Okay got like a very quiet release, so like we don't know. There's not a lot of buzz. Then I don't know right now. It's so funny because I was trying to think of just like what are there many gay movies or stuff coming out, right? And there's stuff that like will show up here and there, but I'll forget about it. I know that there's. Yeah. I saw a trailer for a movie that I'm kind of interested in that's going to be in streaming, and it's about a gay couple going through a breakup, a divorce specifically, and fighting for the custody of their child, which is actually a film that I think I script read a decade ago when I was working in that industry as a script
Wow,
writer.
Really?
I'm pretty sure. If I'll know, depending on some of the scenes, if they kept it.
Well, yeah, I would love to know if you were like, wait a minute, I know this story. So 2 films came out earlier this year to theaters called Drive-Away Dolls and Love Lies Bleeding. Have you heard of either of these films?
The Drive Dolls? The which
Drive Away Dolls.
I know that one, but that one I confused it because that reminds me. Is there an Asian or are those Asians? No.
There's a South Asian girl in it, but
okay, maybe not that one then. What about Bottoms?
Bottoms came out last year. Yeah.
That one came out last year. Is it similar? Yeah. Does it seem similar to Drive Away Dolls?
No.
Maybe the trailers just made me confused of like.
Maybe you just group all lesbians together.
Maybe. Which is the one? Who's in Drive Away Dolls?
Margaret Qualley.
I don't know who that is.
And I'm not sure what the other girl's name is, but they're like, they rented a car unknowing that it has like
drugs or something.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember the trailer now. Oh, isn't Bottoms also? Isn't there like a movie about like girls who are on a road trip or something, and they're also lesbians?
So Bottoms is about high school girls who start a fight club in order to impress their crushes.
Okay,
and that's an all girls fight club. It's very different. Actually, Bottoms is great. I saw that in a packed theater, and it was a riot.
I do want to check it out. That's on my list of movies.
It's
for
great.
Movie Club.
Yeah. Oh, I would love to rewatch that actually. Love Lies Bleeding was with Kristen Stewart.
Oh,
and it was a crime film.
Lesbian.
She is. Yeah, I know. So glad to have her officially on our team because for the longest time it was in whispers. And I forgot the other actress's name, but she was in a Star Wars series. But
Rosario
takes place
Dawson?
in the 80s. No. It takes place in the 80s. Whatever. Point is that these came and they went.
Yeah.
And other than queers, who knew about it?
Queers, not even, right? Because like I didn't know about them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the whole relationship between lesbians and gay men need to improve. But it's just, I don't know. It's unfortunate is all. Because there's some really interesting films. Look, I'm not here complaining about our representation because we've made terrific strides and we just got to keep fighting the good fight because we've made such great strides that people are getting pissed off and Target is pulling their Pride collection.
I was going to say that's like we've made great strides, but like that we're kind of regressing at the moment.
Yeah.
Especially in television. I think in television right now, like we have the lowest representation we've had in like over a decade. And a lot of that happens to be, I'm trying to think. Oh, okay. Yeah. The 2021, 2022 report. There was, we're not going forward. We're going kind of a little bit more backwards. And I think a lot of that though happens to be with the political environment we happen to be in at the moment.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to make a big stink about, you have one gay character. Oh, they're trying to indoctrinate our children. Look at that movie, that Disney movie that came out that looks terrible.
Lightyear.
No. That's Pixar. Well, it is Disney, but no, the one they're underground, Strange New Worlds or something.
I never saw that.
I never saw it. It looked horrible, right? Like, I think the color of the film looked so drab. I was just like, this cannot possibly be. And I'm not to say that I am saying it's a bad movie because of the color scheme, but I'm just saying I had no interest in seeing it. But I know one of the big things about it was that one of the characters in that family was a gay character who actually has like a coming out scene or something, or like reveals that he is gay to the family. And God forbid, who went up in arms? The conservative right and stuff. And Disney kind of then starts like slowly backtracking and stuff. And you're going to see this more and more. I think most major studios are going to you're going to see a lot less representation, I think, for the near future.
Well, Doctor Who this season is very queer.
Oh yeah, Doctor Who. I've heard,
and it always had an element of queerness to it, and a very openness about gender fluidity and stuff like that. But this particular Doctor is very, very sexy and very, very out there. So
Jinx Monsoon was in one of the episodes. She was great.
She was great. She was scary great.
She kind of
scared me.
I kind of now want to see her in like a movie as like a deranged villain.
Ooh, that would be well, she's everywhere, and thank fucking God, we got to get more of them in there. I think I heard that Latrice Royale is also going to be on Broadway soon or something.
Oh, is she? That's cool.
Perhaps, yeah.
I know Bob the Drag Queen is going to be on The Traitors season 3, and if that's not representation, I don't know what is.
Shit. So that's the thing. We've made great strides, but we are regressing. I don't know, but the country's also in a terrible state at the moment. So
there is some regression going on in the country. It does feel like. Guys, go out and vote this November.
Yeah. But
I know that we usually don't promote any other podcasts or anything like that, but I was just listening to the latest episode of This American Life.
You can't promote them.
Classic.
And it's very about the whole Trump like the whole idea of Trump and I'm losing my train of thought here, but how Trump's approaching his campaign this time around
is more hate-fueled.
It's very, very vengeful.
Yeah.
Retribution. It's coming kind of attitude. Yeah. It's very good. It's a very good episode.
Which I can't blame him because I would run my campaign similarly.
Oh, stop, please, stop.
But against like...
Stop. No, come on, please, come on.
Maybe we should end it here.
Yes.
Before it gets even darker or anything like that.
You guys can DM me if you guys want to know who am I going to be seeking my revenge on.
Yes, please do that. Happy Pride. And on such a happy note. Get out there and fight the good fight. But yeah, reach out to us with any questions or thoughts or just, happy thoughts, happy words. You can reach out to us by emailing us, remakesrebootsrevivals@gmail.com. Hit us up on Twitter at Remakes Podcast. Hit us up on Instagram at Remakes Reboots Revivals. We're also on TikTok. I hope we still are.
Question mark. TBD.
Question mark. You can search for us on Facebook and YouTube. And to any podcast listening platform, whatever app you're using, can you go there now and give us a little rating or a review on Apple Podcasts? Because those things help us out tremendously. And also, you can find us on our website. All you can find on the World Wide Web.
Yes. remakesrebootsrevivals.com.
Yes. Well,
yeah, that's it. Do you have any, let's end on an actual happy note. Do you have any actual Pride plans this month, Nicole?
Yeah, I got tons. We are probably going to go to New York Pride.
Okay.
And we almost went to Montclair Pride, but we're just, we're just
there's only so much Prides you can do,
selves,
I guess, right?
Yeah. Like... Until you get all prided out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went to the Asbury Park one. I'm just going to live happily with my girlfriend.
Oh, okay. That's great. That's very, that's what Pride is about.
I have the privilege and I live in a space where I can do that. So I'm going to continue to do that.
You do that. You fight the good fight at home by just being out loud and proud.
Yes.
And,
we should get together for a Pride dinner.
Yes. I was going to go to the prom event that the Hudson County Pride was going to have, but it was a little steep, so I passed.
Yeah, I will admit it is worth it, guys. Oh no, I was going to promote them, but they're sold out. But that's great.
They are sold out.
But they are sold out. But it is a great event. So next year, you guys should consider going. The Hudson County Pride, the Hudson Pride,
the
prom. It's their gala, it's their fundraiser and stuff, and it's a fun event. Like in terms of like alcohol flows, the food is good, and then they give you. Well, last year they gave us like Uber vouchers.
Yeah, that's great. You can't beat that. So if you're in the area, maybe. Well, like he said, it's sold out, but
it's sold out. But yeah, so maybe you'll be there. But no, I would have gone. But we're going to be away camping this weekend.
Oh, nice, fun!
Yay!
Going gay camping, right?
Nice.
So
Gamping.
That's.
Well, it's always gay when we're together.
That's also true. And I don't know. I think that's it. That's so far all we have in terms of our like Pride plans. I don't think we're going to. I'm not going to the city for New York City Pride.
We might. We're definitely spending a weekend in the beach soon. But
I did it one year, and I'm just like, you know what? Never again. Shit is awful.
It depends, and could be brutal there.
Oh, it gets so ratchet at the end of the night.
Yeah,
oh my god,
really crazy.
Like I'm not a 20.
But it's intoxicating. I don't know. It's intoxicating for me, so it's very like, wow, this is awesome. So
I get judgy,
albeit exhausting. You,
I know,
get
right?
Judgy. All right. Well, on that note, guys, we will see you next week and stay unoriginal.
Stay unoriginal.
Unoriginal.